Ken Miller, brother, welcome to the Sauce of Life. The Sauce of Life podcast is about people that have taken their life's experiences and turned those into ingredients that they now use to feed others. It's truly about people that look at the things and the circumstances that they came up from and now they give back. You're one of the greatest examples of that in my life. So, with that being said, Ken Miller, please introduce yourself to the world.
Well, first of all, thank you, Derek. Thank you for the opportunity to come on to your podcast. Hopefully, I'll be able to share some information, some experiences, some overcoming, some resilience that I have experienced in my life, in my journey. Because all it is a journey. And it's how you embrace that journey. How do you either recover from it, bounce back from it, or get to a point in life where you're comfortable within your own skin. And I've had the great opportunity to know you for a few years. And again, I just want to thank you for that opportunity to speak.
And I appreciate that. So, for the world and the audience who doesn't know, Ken Miller has been one of the greatest inspirations in my life and one of my greatest mentors on this journey that I'm on here now. Man, I know that you are the walking embodiment of resilience. And you and I have had many discussions about the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, and how the various childhood adversities that people undergo shape who they are now. I know that you come from a background within the adoption and foster care system, and I know that that has contributed to the man that you are today. So, if you don't mind, just start from your early childhood and let us know who you are and what shaped you.
It's an interesting question or observation. You say start from your early childhood. So there's an early childhood that I'm familiar with, I was a part of, even though my memory is almost 60 years ago. And then there's information that you find out later about your early childhood that you cannot remember because you're too young. You don't remember. I don't remember what I was like at 1 year. I don't remember what I was like at 2 years. But the first observation I would make is that I knew early on that I was a foster child. That was very early on. I was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I realized that what I embodied, that I was not wanted. I didn't have a mother. I knew that. I was going around to different foster homes within the New York adoption system. And when you're visiting all these foster homes for a week, 3 weeks, a month, 6 months, whatever it may be, until you are adopted, if you are adopted, then you have an embodiment or understanding that I am not like other children and that I do not have someone I can call mother. And so that was one of my earliest experiences and understanding. What a cognitive understanding to be a 4-year-old child and know that you're not wanted. At least that's how you embody that. I'm not wanted. Because if I was wanted, I'd have a mother. And I don't have a mother. I just have this foster lady that is taking care of me and this other child that I went around with named Jacob. So that was my first early. Now, that's what I knew of at age 4. Later on in my adulthood, I got more information once I went through the DNA and once I found my birth mother. And that's a whole nother story there that we can get into possibly, but we'll probably save that one. So just to go through my first, and would you say adverse childhood
Childhood
experience?
experience.
Yeah, it was adverse because it created some defense mechanisms early on in my interactions with adults that probably were poor, even as a child, because I had some anger at not having a mother, literally anger at that. So my behavior, my actions toward people that were in positions of power or influence were probably poor. And I'm saying this really nicely, but yeah, they were really poor. And I mean, we may speak to that also, some of the difficulties I had in my early childhood, my late childhood, and going on in my interactions with people, especially in positions of power.
I appreciate you sharing that, brother. In the adverse childhood experiences, foster care is one of
Mhm,
the 10, the original 10.
mhm,
Um, so I didn't. I'm sorry, no, it's not the original 10. It's one of the extras, the add-ons. So that's one that I don't have experience with. I did not grow up in a foster home, although my grandmother was a foster parent. You hit on a few things that I would love to explore a little bit
sure.
more. Um, First, this concept, you seem to recognize that you developed a feeling of feeling unwanted because you didn't have a mother there. You didn't have the nurturing of a mother or somebody that gave birth to you that desired to maintain that relationship with you early on in life. And if you don't mind speaking to that, because it's not just a mother, and you also didn't have a father there early
Mhm.
on. I mean, if you don't mind going into that a little bit, and then the anger and how you learned how that manifested, and then how'd you deal with it.
Okay, so first of all, father could care less. Could care less. Didn't even think about a father. For a small child, usually it's the mother that they are bonding with, and there's that sense of love that from a mother that I'm not going to say a father doesn't give, but at least for me, I didn't even think about a father, at least in my thoughts. But I knew and maybe saw mother's love, maybe other kids at school, in kindergarten or first grade, whatever it may be. So, and this is interesting because I'm thinking about this as I'm speaking. The sense is not the the greater sense, the bigger picture is not unwanted. That's a manifestation of not being good enough. That's what if if I was lovable and if I was good enough, you wouldn't have gave me away. Now I don't know what the circumstances. As a 4-year-old, I can't articulate that. I don't know what happened. I didn't know if it happened at 2 years, at birth, at 4 years. All I know is I wasn't good enough for whatever reason. I was not, and I mean, this is a 4-year-old. This is a 5-year-old can literally sense this. Therefore, I have to do things to make sure that people, especially in positions of authority, like me. So, how I manifested and how I dealt with that is I learned to lie really early, really early. And I learned how to put on either a face or a visage or a behavior so that you would like me. Because if you don't like me, you'll get rid of me. Now, as a 4-year, I don't know where you're going to send me. I don't know if you're just going to put me on the street. I don't know that. All I know is from the beginning, my earliest memory is I was in a home, a great home in Long Island, New York. And then one day I go upstairs and all my sisters are crying. And my mom and dad are crying. Now I'm thinking they're mom and my dad. And next I know, this white lady, because I'm in a black family, foster family, comes to take me away because she's a social worker, comes to take me and another child my age named Jacob away. And they were crying because they had bonded with me. I don't know how long. I don't have those records. And they were crying, these teenage girls and the mom and the dad. And everybody was sad because these children who are foster children were going on to the next foster home. So I didn't really understand what was happening at that point. Then I went to another one for, let's say, 3 weeks, and then another one, then another one. And believe me, I understood. So what is my first reaction? I have to have people like me so they don't send me away. Because I don't know why I'm getting sent away. So I'm thinking I did something wrong, and now I got to go to another house. I did something wrong, got to go to another house. So I learned really early on to model behavior that would be non-threatening, model behavior that would be untrue, model behavior that would hopefully have people like me. But remember, I'm so young, I have to guess what this is. What is this behavior? And so especially when I went to school, I really didn't understand. And then I had to learn pretty quickly because I had some experiences, because I had a tendency to act out because I'm feeling certain things at home. I act out toward these authority figures. But I learned somewhat quickly. And then I began to model behavior. So by the time I got into, let's say, middle school, junior high, and high school, I was, we'll say, like the perfect kid. People loved me in school. And those authority figures loved me because I was non-threatening. I wasn't hard to deal with. So anyway, but going back to really it's the period between 4 through 6, 7 that I identified how am I going to circumvent these individuals in power, and also how I was going to deal with the world around me as a 6, 7, 8, 9 year old child. Too much at that age. That's too much work. And
Sounds like
it
it.
affected me for the rest of my life. I'm still a product of my childhood. I'm still a product of those first probably 6, 7 years. It just most of it I've dealt with positively, and I understand it. This is the key. I've taken a lot of time, Derek, to look at my actions, number one. Then I have the ability to go back and understand how was I thinking at that time and how was I feeling. And then I can look at that and say, hey, I don't have to either feel that or think that today. And now, how am I going to deal with my adulthood in ways that maybe protected me as a 8 year old, but are not good as an adult? Okay.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing all that, man. You dropped so many nuggets in there, so many different ways that this can go. And I
So,
believe honestly that you're going to be the most challenging interviewee on this podcast because I understand that you've gone through so much in your life. Um, and I really want to be able to do justice to your story because you're literally one of what I call God's warriors. You're one of the people that are walking that truly know what it's like to hit that rock bottom and to come up. But you said something in there. You said many things, but you essentially hid yourself. You weren't able to become kin because you were too busy trying to please people so that you could have a house, a roof over your head. In that, um, that feeling of every time you transition from house to house to house, you were self-blaming, like as
mhm.
if you were the problem and what's wrong with you, and I need to change this behavior or that behavior. And especially in this world today, it feels like the social media driven world. A lot of people exist in that till this day, till this moment, where they can't be authentically them because they're so busy trying to get the world to like them so that they can have friends or followers or things like this. Um, when did you discover your truth of who you are? And at what stage did you learn to love yourself? Did you learn to value who you are?
That's still a journey. I'm still discovering me. I'm very comfortable in my skin today, but I'm still becoming more authentic, if you can understand what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
There have been, and you know some of these, there have been transition points where I've had a profound experience of my truth, who I really am. Okay. And we'll talk to some of them we won't. Then in time, first of all, there's one to understand the truth, and then there's another to do something about it or make a change or a modification. My key thing is two things, really three things. One is how I deal with the external world, how I deal with my internal self-talk, and how I deal with whatever spiritual entity I so believe in, I would call God. Those are the three relationships I'm always in. I'm not going to say conflict or struggle because many times I'm not struggling with them. There are times I do struggle with external people, places, or things, we'll say. Sometimes I struggle with my self talk, and sometimes I struggle in my relationship with God. Okay, I'm cool with that. But today I struggle, and it doesn't put me in the penitentiary. Today I struggle, and I'm not threatening people or hurting people. Today I struggle, and I'm not self mutilating. I'm not trying to commit suicide. That's I'm not struggling with self. And I also, my struggle with God is I'm not struggling. I just try to do God's will to the best of my ability. So When did this happen? There's been many pivot points or many uh, profound moments, but most of them have happened. I'll just say this: most of them happened in the last 20 years. That's for sure. I'm 61 today, and I apologize for the light. I think I got too much light coming on. So
Nobody will have time to focus on the light, brother, because we're too busy focusing on the wisdom that you're dropping. You just
sure.
mentioned a whole bunch of things there. And this is what I mean. We haven't even left high school yet, and you're already talking about self-mutilation. You're talking about self-deprecation. You're talking about your struggle with a higher entity.
All right, let's go with that. That should work a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay.
No,
Ooh, I like that. Now you got me on the spotlight. Okay, I'm ready.
yeah, you're on the spotlight.
Mhm,
So we're talking about all these various things that you've gone through in life, and we'll get to the penitentiary later.
mhm.
We'll get to some of those struggles. You mentioned something that I would like to go back to before we move forward in your life, which is comfort in your own skin. And again, we haven't left high school yet, so I would love to for you to explore being comfortable in your own skin, because it wasn't just about you learning to love yourself. There was also literally you were raised by initially black parents, and then and you've also been raised by white parents as well. Like you've had issues struggling in your own skin, correct?
Yes and no. I've
Okay.
so I had some foster homes that were white. That's for sure. There are probably just not enough African American foster parents out there for the amount of African American children in the New York system. When I say a system, each state has an adoption system, and it's at the state level. It's not federal, it's not county, it's a state system. So I come from the New York state system. Okay. And within that system, children are put up for adoption. They go into the system. I call it the system. And then you're put into foster homes for um, indeterminate lengths of time. And I don't know how that is done, don't really care. All I know is I sometimes a week, sometimes months with these. And I remember probably about 2 to 3 years of foster homes from ages of maybe 3, 4-ish to 6. Okay. And I was then adopted um, by a family, and that became my legally adopted family. Let me talk to that real quick. So I'm in a foster home, and then this couple, Irene and Sam Miller, are looking to adopt a child. And my mother said they had like a mug book at the adoption agency. It's called the Wyndham Agency. It's the oldest adoption agency in the United States, founded in the 1800s in New York City. And it was really expensive. This is 1968, which is crazy. You're trying to get these kids adopted, but it's expensive to do this. And they're a black family. So they're adopting another young black child and doing the paperwork. And my mom said she was just leafing through this book, and it's just literally a book of pictures of black children because it's sort of racial. And she said she was leafing through, and she saw my picture. I must have been 4 or 5 years. Well, maybe might have been 5 or 6 at that point. And she told them, "Stop the presses. I want this one. I want this one." Just by my look on that picture. And to this day, I'm so thankful that Irene Miller adopted me. But sometimes I feel sadness for the other child that did not have my mother, my adoptive mother. And so I'm at a foster home. I go to stay. It was Olive, John and Olive Turley in Amityville, New York, 1968. And I go to spend some time with this potential foster parent. And I remember I didn't want to go. I'm just a child because I was enjoying staying with the Turleys. And also, I had a brother named Jacob, who I thought was my brother. I literally thought he was my biological brother because we always went around together. And
Yeah.
I found out later he was not my brother. But anyway, I went up and I went to this family, and I already saw some situations with my father, Samuel Miller, that gave me pause for thought. That's an adult term for, man, something ain't right here with
Right.
him. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But my mother, Irene Miller, my potential mother, was so incredible as a human being. I just wanted a mother. I just wanted a mother. And so, even though I had some thoughts or concerns about Sam, I get Irene. And so I went in front of the court and I got adopted. And to this day, I'm so, so thankful for that. But one more thing I want to say about this. This is not my biological mother, but I'm calling her mom. And to this day, she's my mom. Okay. She's passed away, but she's my mom. But that was a lie. So anytime we went out and people would see me with Irene Miller, oh, he looks just like you. And we would just smile. And I had a birth certificate that was not truth. Showed Irene and Sam as being my birth parents, da 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 da, because it's a legal document. But I always knew. And so it made it real comfortable when I lied throughout my life. I lied throughout my life to protect, because I grew up with a lie. I grew
Right.
up with a lie. And then when I had to do things to protect myself physically from violence, lying became real easy then. I could justify that one in a heartbeat.
And you ended up with that with Sam. That as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, it's I'm wondering how many people resonate with this idea that you had this intuition as a young kid, this survival mechanism. You wanted and
Mhm.
craved the love of a mother, the nurturing of a mother so bad, but you felt that energy with Sam, but you felt like you could deal with
Mhm.
it. And I wonder if Sam felt the same way towards you. But if you don't mind just exploring that a little bit, how did that relationship between you and Sam develop and you and Irene develop, you and your mom?
Okay, number one, Irene Miller, unconditional love. Unconditional love. Which means that no matter what I did, and I did a lot of adverse behavior, I did a lot of negative stuff. I'm a 3-time convicted felon, and my mom had to deal with that. I was a 20-year drug addict. I was on the streets for 20 years. You know my story, and we'll talk probably more a little bit about that. But um, she loved me. And I didn't really understand what that meant, unconditional love, but I do now. My father, for many years, I did not understand his animosity or anger toward me. I didn't understand that. I do now as an adult. Oh man, and I really got an understanding of that back in 1990s, early 2000s. I understood why he was so angry toward me. He didn't want me. He already had 2 kids. My mom didn't have any children. He had already had 2 children with his first wife. And my mother was such a phenomenal, fantastic woman. It took away some of the love that she could show him, because all it was Sam and Irene. Now you bring in this child, 6 years old, somewhat damaged in a way, somewhat needy, especially for love and affection. And my mom's going to give that to me. And my dad's like, been there, done that. And now you're taking away, some of that time, some of that affection, some of that love that could be directed toward me. And in a way, you could say this is, and again, this you can call this an opinion, but this is my truth.
Right.
He was jealous. He was envious. And then my mom was protective of me. Now, on top of that, my father was a very angry man for certain reasons. He was very angry. And growing up as a black man in the 20s and the 30s, going to World War II, fighting for your country and being treated like he was, I could go into that for a half hour. Okay. Again, I had to understand that. And then his father was a very angry. My mom said, you said your dad's father was the meanest man I've ever met in my life, was the meanest, angriest man I've ever met. That's what my father had to deal with. Okay. I never met him, but that's what he had to deal with. So there's a lot of dynamics. But this is the key. I want to say this, Derek, is I took the time to try to understand him because for many, many decades, it was a black white thing. He was just evil. My dad was just evil. We'll talk about it. My dad shot my mom 6 times. So he was just evil. He beat the bejeebers out of me. I mean, he beat me so bad. Police were called, hospital. Oh, he beat me bad. Okay. And this is for years. This went on. Okay. So I had a lot. So I just looked at him as black, as evil. Okay. And it's unfortunate in our society, black is evil, white is good. That's a whole nother dynamic we won't get into right now. But a lot of that has to do with black being you can't see, you can't perceive because it's dark and there's danger in darkness. Okay. Well, my dad was dark. And, but I understand him now and I have forgiven him many years ago. But I took the time because I needed to try to understand what was the dynamics of being a black man at his time.
That's a critical thing that you're talking about right there, which is a method of forgiveness and being able to go back and look at the person that offended you at a younger age and try to ask yourself, what did they endure as a child that allowed them or facilitated the adult that they become now? Man, again, there's so much in here from you that helps people. I believe will open up doors for other people. Did you find? So I know that Sam was an alcoholic.
Mhm, mhm.
This was something that you observed as a young kid, but your mom was not.
Not at all.
How,
Teetotaler.
okay, how did that dynamic play into your life?
Well, my father was an alcoholic. So the dynamic was he was an alcoholic. So the deal about an alcoholic is, and I'm an alcoholic, so I can talk to this well. I just celebrated 20 years clean and sober
Congratulations on
on
that, by the way.
September 23rd, 2024. But so my father's an alcoholic. So first of all, as a child, you don't understand what that means. You have no clue what an alcoholic versus a non-alcoholic is, or a teetotaler for that matter. And my mom was a teetotaler. She didn't drink at all. Zero. No drugs, of course. Zero. My dad wasn't, as far as I know, a drug addict, but he was an alcoholic. And an alcoholic would, my definition of an alcoholic is an individual that cannot, with any certainty, control the amount that they drink. And under the influence of enough alcohol, they make really poor decisions for them and their loved ones and literally society. Okay. So my father drank, he drank apricot brandy. That was his alcohol of choice. I'll never forget seeing those fists of apricot brandy in his car. And most or many alcoholics have a fundamental underlying feeling behind their drinking. And my father was full of remorse, regret. And so when he was drunk, he had a tendency to be very angry about his present situation or the things that he resented or regretted. Um, which is sad because he had such a beautiful life because he had my mom and we were middle class. I mean, he was an accountant. My mom ran nursing programs, so that wasn't it. But there were certain things that obviously had happened to him in his childhood. Again, World War II, and then into the position that he did have at his job. So he took it out on me, and I was the brunt. My father, until he shot my mom, never had any violence toward my mom, not once. And I was there. Okay, it was all toward me. And again, he was resentful of me. And so he was an alcoholic. He was a violent alcoholic. He was an angry alcoholic. He was a sad alcoholic. Nothing like a sad alcoholic. Ugh, it's ugly. I'm not a sad alcoholic. And if we ever get into that, I'll tell you more of what I was like as an alcoholic. So, having said all that, it manifests itself in violence. It manifests itself in threats. It manifests itself in danger. It manifests itself in car accidents. Um, it affected our family in a lot of ways. So that was my father.
Wow, man, that's God. I had a thought while you were talking. I had several, but your dad as an alcoholic, I understand that he became more abusive, but he didn't need alcohol necessarily to want to dive into punishing you for whatever infraction he believes that you committed. But a question that I have is, your mom watched it or observed it or was aware of it.
Mhm.
How does that impact you, knowing that that's your source of love and nurturing? And then looking at your dad, who is the biggest um, threat, the biggest source of fear in your life, and that the person who loves you most is aware of the person that you fear the most and the behaviors of that person. How do you reconcile that, or did you struggle with that as a kid?
I struggled with it as an adult. As a child, I didn't struggle with it. So let me correct you on one thing. My
Okay.
father was not violent when he was sober. Period. He wasn't violent. Now I might have done some things where he got a little angry. I might even got a spanking, but it was deserved. But he was sober. It's when he's drunk that's scary. Okay, because then your shut-off valve sometimes doesn't shut off. Okay, he got the spanking. Back when I grew up, we got spanked. Okay, I got hit over my knuckles in school with the yardstick. Okay, that was common in the 60s and 70s. Nowadays, it's not that common in school. Okay, so just want to make sure, because I don't want to make him into something he wasn't.
Okay.
Okay, he was bad enough, without making him worse. Okay, and remember, I understand him now. I'm not saying it was all right what he did, because what he did was never all right. Okay, at that level. Okay, so the key thing is what you're talking about is sometimes we have people in our lives that we believe are supposed to protect us. Okay. It could be our husband, it could be our wife, it could be our family, our big brother, whatever. Hey, I'm a woman. Why aren't you protecting me from this guy? Um, Mom, why aren't you protecting me from dad? Husband, why aren't you protecting me from this situation? Okay. And we look at them under trying to understand why. And remember, I said to you, my mom was, remember, I'm almost like a black white. I make a dichotomy between the two different good, bad, good, evil. My mom was perfect good. But for years, I harbored a resentment toward her from not, for really one incident. One incident. It's not the 20 times that dad beat me, because we left 10 times and got a motel to get away from him. Now she kept going back, okay? Because, we men and women too, We can sound good and we can say we're going to change our behavior, change our action, or go to treatment. Da, da, da. I did it. Okay. But there was the one incident in 1975 when we left him in New York and moved to Alaska. That's how I got to Alaska. We moved to get away from him. That's one of the main reasons. And we couldn't think of anywhere far enough. And he came back 5, 6 months. We had a bad situation in 75. Bad situation happened. And we left the furniture, everything. Or we took the dogs and the cats and me, moved to Alaska. December, I got there in September. It was the best period of my childhood, bar none. I was never so happy and so relieved because I wasn't living in fear. And so I um we moved there in September. December, my mom comes and sits me down and says, "Hey, Sam wants to come back. Should I let him come back to be with us?" And I looked my mom dead in the eye and I begged her, begged her not to take him back. Please don't, mom. Please, please don't. And she took him back. And I harbored a resentment for years over that because it got ugly later on, as you know. And I remember I was in treatment in what we call family, and we talked about this incident. And again, it's so important that you get the rest of the story. And I said to mom, she said, Kenneth, that's what she always called me, Kenneth. Kenneth, first of all, I want to apologize. And I may not be word for word, but this is paraphrasing. She said, I grew up in a time where you stood by your husband no matter what. That's the script I was given in the 40s, in the 50s, and the 60s, that you stand by your man. And I believed him again. I was wrong. And I apologize. I'll never forget that we were in again. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a script that was in her. I just thought
Right.
if you loved me enough, you would never taken him back. Well, there was a bigger script that says this is how we do as Black women to stand by our Black men. And unfortunately, in many occasions, that script has ended in death and destruction, almost ended in death, for certain individuals.
It nearly so knowing your story and knowing part
Yeah.
of the background, if you
Mhm.
don't mind,
No, not at all.
to come back. And just this thought that you're in the happiest period of your life between
Happy.
that September and that December before your life completely turned around. He came back, you're still in high school. You, if I recall correctly, you had only had like half of a beer in high school. Very
Mhm.
good,
Mhm.
like good person, good kid.
Perfect. Remember? Yeah.
And if you don't mind, if you're comfortable with it, talking about the Pearl incident and then how from the Pearl incident and moving forward, your mom gets shot. You've mentioned that several times, and then you head off to college. If you don't mind sharing that.
Oh, yeah. I was like, the pearl? What the heck is he talking about? Okay. So I'm 17 years old in high school going through puberty. This has to do with this story. So I'm scared of women. I'm scared of girls. Yeah, but I got this book. So most individuals, I'm an intellectual. I truly am an intellectual. I'm of the mind. I'm of the intellect. And so most 17-year-olds will get a Playboy or a Penthouse. Okay. And for masturbation, I'm just, me, I'm a straight shooter.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
17. And instead, I get this book that's like this thick, and it's called The Pearl, and it's Victorian English pornography stories. That's what I got. Okay. And because I'm just different. And I had it underneath my bed, and with all the dishes. because I would eat in my room because I didn't want to deal with my father. I, I can count on two hands the times we ate as a family. So I would grab my meals and I would take them into my room, eat my food, and then put the plates underneath the bed. And then, about every 2 or 3 weeks, my mom would come in and say, "Kenneth, do you know where the plates are or the bowls?" Oh, and I'd go get them and put them and clean them. So anyway, I got the book underneath there. Somehow, my father found the book. Now he's drunk. It's like on an afternoon, and my mom's downstairs. My room's upstairs, the bedroom. He comes in the room and either has the book or he sees the book, and he calls me a faggot because he thought it was gay. It wasn't gay. It was hetero, but he calls me like a faggot. And I had this, internal script. You can't call me a faggot. And I hit my father. I punched him. I'm 17. I'm probably about 160. My dad's 5'11", 210. And I can't tell you how thrilled my father was that I had hit him, like punched him. I'll never forget his words. "Oh, you want to fight now?" And he gave me a molly whopping. I don't even know what that word means, but he beat the beavers out of me. I mean, hands on, because, you know, but he was glad because that made me mad because he always thought of me as being weak, soft, because I hung out with my mom. I didn't want to hang out with him because he was so dangerous and so angry all the time. And mom had to call the police. Police arrested him, and we left. This is my senior year in high school, 17 years old. We left and had to hide out the rest of my senior year going into college, hide out. And I didn't see my father again for 3 years. And you know that story.
The
Okay.
audience doesn't though. Did your friends know what was happening? And then, if you don't mind, just go right into that 3 years. What happened?
Did my friends know? Yeah. They knew my dad. They knew my dad because my dad would be drunk. And they might come over to visit, and my dad would be drunk. He might holler something from downstairs, whatever, and I'd cower down there, take care of it, come back up. I mean, he didn't beat me every living moment, but they knew my dad as being drunk. I mean, my dad was my baseball coach, so my dad would come to the games drunk. A lot of times he passed out in the car, and we're trying to have a baseball game, and they're like, "Where's the manager?" And I'd point, "Here's my dad." So the assistant manager, who was special needs, our neighbor, special needs, would be our manager for that game. It's talking about Bad News Bears. So they knew, but what are they going to do? Or nor really, what do they care? And they didn't know how bad it was, because I've talked to them now. I'm still friends with my high school buddies. They didn't know how bad it was. Even if they did, what can they do? What can they do? Okay,
Right.
my dad had beat all four of us, and and that'd have been another day in the park.
Whole other thing.
So,
But then you led to sorry to cut you off, but
mhm,
as I recall, she filed a restraining order against him,
yeah,
and this is what kind of led up to this shooting incident and the shock of the
right.
shooting.
But see, a lot of people don't. Not a lot of people, but and it's sort of we talk about it in the book. So this happened in 1979, fall of '79. Okay, my mom didn't get shot until 1985. Okay, so we got 6 years in between. So the first 3 years till about 82, 83-ish, I didn't see my father. I'm cool with that. I'm off at college. I'm at this Ivy League school, Dartmouth College, doing what I was doing, which is another story. And I hadn't seen him. I thought I'd never see him again in my life. And I'd have been cool with that. Okay. And then one day, as you know the story, I was walking down Gamble Street in Anchorage, Alaska, probably about 12th and Gamble, and just walking up the street. Summer, I'm off term, summer, and I walk up and I look up, and it's my father who I have not seen in 3 years, but I have a palpable fear of him. And I looked at him in shock. It's incredible because I've been in situations of true fear where your fear goes from 0 to 99. 100 will kill you. The fear is so much, you probably have a heart attack. But I go from 0 to 99 in literally a millisecond. Some gun situations I was involved in, and this one with my father. And I looked at him, I'm in shock. Remember, we can only do 3 things, really 4 things with fear: fight, flight, freeze, or accept. Okay. And I wasn't accepting. I wasn't going to fight him on the street. I knew what happened last time. So the first thing I did was I freezed for about 2 seconds. And then I turned around and ran as fast as I could. As a grown 19-year-old man child, that's how deep my fear was for my father.
Thank you for sharing that, brother.
No problem.
As I said, the challenge with your story is trying to capture this in this amount of time, and because there's so much there. You went to
Mm-hmm.
Dartmouth, Ivy League school, and this is where you became an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Was in Dartmouth. One
No,
of
no.
the,
Stand
okay, so
correct.
correct
I was
that.
born an alcoholic. I'm
Okay,
born an alcoholic. I truly believe I am born an alcoholic. Whatever way my brain, my body metabolizes alcohol, I don't have that shut off switch. Same thing with drugs, same thing with gambling. Okay. I don't have the shut off switch. And then I can justify continuing the behavior, the alcohol, the drugs. I was born that way. Okay. I remember all I do, I just had to be exposed. The half beer didn't do it. It's a half a beer. But
right.
when I went into the fraternity system, October 1980, by within a month, I'm a full blown alcoholic. I can't control, and I drink to
Within
excess.
within a month.
Within a month, we were having concerns that December because I'm calling home drunk. Okay. Yeah, we were having concerns. My mom was within 2 months of my first drink in college.
Wow. What are some of the what are some of the behaviors or some of the warning signs for parents that might see this of their kid who's now entering college and going into that fraternity or sorority system? What are some of the warning signs that they may have?
You'll know it soon. You should know it soon enough. Number one, it'll affect your grades, obviously. Number two, individual will get in trouble. Number three, girls will find themselves in situations where they'll be taken advantage of, period. Been there, seen it. Okay. And for the guys, it usually manifests as either depression, violence, poor grades. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for warning signs for kids going to college, it happens to a lot. No matter what, there's going to be a percentage, but you don't know that many times unless they started drinking in high school. So a lot of people, I go to my meetings and stuff. They talk about, they started when they were 12 or 14 or whatever, and they knew they or had a drinking problem. And remember, there are different levels. There are people who have drinking problems. There are people who are alcoholics. There are people who are binge drinkers, and some of them will grow out of it. But believe me, the car doesn't know when you get the DUI whether it was just a one-off, a binge, or full alcoholic. They don't care. The court system doesn't care. Okay. When you find yourself in a situation that's shame based as a woman or as a man, because I've had both, due to a situation where you've been taken advantage of sexually, it doesn't care whether you're a binge drinker, you just drank too much, or you're a problem drinker or an alcoholic. You're now in this situation where you're shame based, or other adverse conditions due to this unwanted sexual advance or condition. Okay. So, I mean, I can go into that for a while. I know alcoholism, I know addiction, I know what it does to you. The key thing for me is, and this is real important, and I say this, I'm not a big believer, or let me say, I do not believe at all in antecedents. And what is an antecedent? That means a reason why you become an alcoholic or drug addict. I don't believe in that. That's just me. Okay. Um, and what it did for me, that was powerful when I understood that, because many times we believe if we deal with the underlying problem, condition, childhood trauma, sexual, assault that happened when I was 14. If I deal with that, then I can drink successfully or use drugs successfully without the adverse conditions on the back end. This is the key for me, Derek. I cannot drink without pain on the back end, period. Period, point blank. I cannot do drugs without pain on the back end. Okay. And I
Yeah.
know that. I know that. I know that in my
I
heart.
would love to spend just a couple minutes,
Mhm.
and this is where people are going to have to read the book because
Yeah.
there's a lot more there. So
Mhm.
when you're talking about antecedents, essentially this leading to that, or
Mhm.
this being the cause of that, and you went into addiction. I mean, bad addiction,
Mhm.
drugs and alcohol for 2 decades, and were on the streets, and everything from the substance abuse, prostitution, pimping,
Mhm.
entering the criminal system, been 3 times in the. Go into that, please, and just explain that journey for the audience.
So, yeah, this is a quicker version. So what happens is I go to Dartmouth, I get out, quote unquote, with a degree. I get cleaned up for the first time. I go into the corporate world. I'm in corporate sales, doing a great job. Everything's going hunky dory. I'm sober, doing a little powder cocaine because this is back when cocaine was not addictive. Um, and I'm in the disco scene and the club scene, but I'm not drinking. And then 2 years after I get sober for the first time, I decide, well, I've dealt with everything. I got everything under control. I'm making big money, 50,000 a year, which was big money in 86. I've dealt with situations with my dad. My dad's in prison at this point. Da, 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 I'm good. And so I can drink now without pain on the back end. And not true. Not true. So literally, I go to Hawaii on vacation, have a blue Hawaiian, and within 3 days, I'm broke and in the same situation of self hatred and depression. Dot dot dot. So I now have relapsed. Now that I've relapsed, now it opens the world for heavier drugs. So I get into freebase cocaine. At that time, still up in Anchorage, Alaska. I move away. Maybe a geographic will help. That was probably 87, 88. Go to treatment, inpatient, get suicidal, wreck the car, da 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 da. And then by 89, now at 86, I'm on top of the world. Within 2 to 3 years, I am homeless on the streets of Seattle. And so once I became homeless, in and out of treatment centers, pick up my first misdemeanor theft charge, and then I get involved with pimping and prostitution. And so what that means is I'm pimping teenage girls and I'm prostituting my body to pay for my addiction as a male prostitute. And then I get into some more difficulties, 2 DUIs, and then I do a burglary, pick up my first felony in 91. And that gets me up to 91. And then I have just 10 years in and out of jail, penitentiaries, treatment centers, missions, soup kitchens. That's it. I'm sorry about the lighting.
No worries. Again, if someone in the audience has time to focus on the lighting
Yeah.
instead of missing what you're talking about, then they're focused on the wrong thing. In that, first, thank you for sharing all that. But you go through this entire thing, and what the audience, as we begin to wrap this thing up, brother, what I really would love you to get into, first of all, to the audience, anybody in the audience,
Mhm.
Ken's book is coming out, tentatively titled "Surviving Ken."
Mhm.
And you have to pick this book up because we're barely scratching the surface of the life.
Barely.
Barely. For those of you that listen to me, trust me when I tell you, we are barely scratching the surface of this man's life. But then, can you go to prison? You enter the third time you enter the Wings program for the second time,
Mhm.
and that time, that treatment center at that point changed your life, right? Or you had some moments that changed your life. I know you had the moment with your mom where you burglarized her. I know you
Mhm.
had the moment where you enter prison and you begin mentoring and doing different things. So if you can break that down into how that contributed to this journey that you're on now, because you've raised tens of millions of dollars to help other people in their life. And this comes back to that whole sauce of life thing where you took all of these adversities of your life, all of your trip ups, and you turn them into triumphs. All of those adversities, you either have or are in the process of turning them into advantages, speaking into the lives of others. That's been your sauce that you've made for others, from my observation. If you can please go into that and how you did that, and tens of millions of dollars, man, come on.
Yeah. I, the millions. I don't. I. The millions are great. I'm a nonprofit consultant. That's what I do for my business. I own a business and I have employees, and we do that, and we raise millions of dollars, predominantly for tribal today, but I've raised them for all types of nonprofits. But probably more important is than the money is the men that I've had the pleasure and honor of working with. You know this. My passion is mentoring young black men. That's my passion. Okay, other than my wife and other than my spiritual walk, my passion is mentoring young black men. I stay in that lane because lane needs a lot of assistance. We need father figures. And I'll use that term. We need a older adult black male that believes in you and your dream and also won't co-sign on the bullshit. Won't co-sign on bad. I won't. Anyone who knows me. But I will try to lead you because I have your best interests at heart. Derek, we've been working a long time together, and without getting into our personal relationship, but I saw you as someone that could probably avail themselves of some of my knowledge. And sometimes it's not even knowledge, it's just believing in somebody and saying, hey, I love your dream, bro. Come on, let's run with that. And you're gonna have some tough days, you're gonna have some good days, but let's stay forward. And you always know, at least here, you got someone that believes in you. Okay? Because sometimes we lose it from our partner. Sometimes we lose it from our parents or our siblings, that they don't believe in the dream and they don't believe in you becoming a better person. Sometimes that's a danger to their choices. Okay, and I
Right.
can go into that. That's more in the peer. Anyway, the short version is 2004. I go to prison for the third time. I've been sentenced to 6 years in the penitentiary for drug sales of crack cocaine. And I go in there and I say to myself, this is the third time. If I do not change everything, I'm going to have the same results I had the first two times coming out of the penitentiary. So I had to change physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I made a plan and I pretty much adhered to the plan. I really did. And I came out a different person. Even though I still struggled that first hour out of the penitentiary, when you get dropped off, 3 blocks from where you got arrested after 3 years being down, yeah, because you got one world that you see hasn't changed. That world doesn't change. Okay, different people, but the same hustles are going on, same behaviors are going on. The same needs from individuals are going on. And so I had to make a choice. And, I say thank God, because I do thank God. I made the right choice. And because I made that decision to go down this path, I'm sitting here today. Because if not, I'd probably either be in penitentiary for a long time or I'd be dead, probably more dead. Because I couldn't take too many more hits. I couldn't take too many more hits. Again, because I have this self talk going and I just couldn't take too many more hits. So I went in, made the changes, and then got out. And this is a key one, Derek. You can get out and just enjoy life without giving back. But I made a conscious decision to give back. That's a conscious decision, not because I owed society or the world. It's because I made a conscious decision within my moral and ethical being to give back because I have a gift, and you know that. And my gift is the ability to articulate and to also allow people to understand that I've taken away the power of the secret, okay, that shame based behavior. And I can sit in front of you and say it in a book. I can say it on stage. I can say it on a one on one. And then, therefore, I can give you power on a one on one or in the audience or reading the book to say, hey, I don't have to allow this to modify my comfortability with life. Remember, my biggest battle wasn't with God. It wasn't with the judge. It wasn't with the police. It was with Ken. That's why the name of the book is Surviving Ken, because that's what my battle was. It's right here. And I'm comfortable with me. And the word I use, the term I use, I'm not in an adversarial relationship with self. I'm
Yep.
not today. I'm man, I likes me. I likes me. Okay. What a cool place to be.
It is, and now you're a granddad. Beautiful, beautiful little kiddo. And man, it's beautiful to see you interacting because bringing it back full circle, that concept that you talked about of unconditional love,
Mhm.
when someone can observe you with your grandkid, you can see it. You can see how it lights up and changes your whole being. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm proud of you, just so you know. Again, to the audience, please, please connect with Ken because his book, for those of you that anything that is said or any topic that has been covered, even if we didn't deep dive into it, I'm telling you, this guy has been through enough to be able to help change your life, to help you transform into who you're trying to become. Ken, where can people connect with you?
Well, you can connect with me via email. I only have one. And either you can give it to them or I could say ken at denalifsp.com. You can connect there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn anytime. It's Ken Miller 84 is my handle under LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all the social medias. I have a website, and it'll probably be something like Ken Miller Speaks. I'm still working. In fact, I'm meeting with that individual tomorrow. And I'm open to connection. I, I can't tell you how many people have connected with me, and I communicate. I'm not above. That's one of the things is when you've experienced what I have experienced in life, and you truly have gratitude to be alive, to be healthy, and to have the gifts that I have today, it's easy for me to give back. It is easy. And even if it wasn't easy for me to give back, I'll still do it because that's my internal conversation with myself that I will continue to give back to those that, seek connection. That's how I do that. So, and then again, the book is coming out. Get it if you do, great. If you have a question on it. One of the things that I am looking for is always looking for opportunities to speak. That's what I love to do. That's my gift. I truly believe that. And people who have seen me speak will probably say that is a gift. But I'm looking for opportunities to speak, to share the message for pay or not for pay. I've been blessed. I'm very, very successful, but I've been blessed. And I just want to be able to share that story. And again, a lot of my story is about the recovery aspect of it. The incidents may be this damaged person, but I've been able to heal. And there is a really almost a complete healing of who I am today. And so this is what you see. I'm just a soft and gentle man today.
Right.
And I want to continue that way.
Brother, that's what the sauce of life is about. The life experiences that you've turned into ingredients that you now use to feed others. If this were the last time that you and I spoke,
Mhm.
or the only time that someone in my audience hears you speak, what is it that you would want to say to us for us to walk away with? I'm gonna let you wrap up this interview for us.
Number one, you can heal. It's doable. It's doable. Because there are times in the journey where I never thought I could get better. Whether it's addiction, whether it's trauma, whether it's behavior, I never thought I could get better. But you can get better. That's number one. I say that. You can heal. Number two, take away the power of the secret. Take away the power of the secret. I don't care if you have to go to a preacher or a pastor that you never heard of. Sit down with someone and talk about your secrets, and let take away that power that the secret tells you that you're less than. Okay. Number three, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Number four, forgive others, even those that have harmed you. Because you remember, you've heard my story. What I had to do is I had to understand more of where that person was. And pretty much almost anybody can be forgiven. There might be a couple serial killers. I don't know. I don't want to go into that too much. And then the other thing is if you can, and I'm going to say only if you can, share the triumph, share the overcoming, share your gratitude. If you're truly grateful, share it. Share it with others. Mentor, coach, friend, befriend. Yeah, and I'll say one more. Open yourself up to opportunity. Open yourself up to opportunity. I've talked to Derek about this a few times. Walk through the door. Walk through the door. See what's on the other side. If you need help on it, reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm getting ready to walk through this door, through this interview, meet this person. I just want to tell you a little bit about it before I go in there. And then do you mind if I holler at you when I get back from the experience and maybe talk about it a little bit, debrief, but walk through the door. There's serendipity in the experience. And also it gives you almost a good practice when there's some doors that you're hesitant to walk through. So, I mean, I could probably give a few more, but let me just do one. Understand, this is one's deep, folks. Understand what love really is. And I'm not going to go into a long dissertation on this, but take some time to really understand what is love and then manifest it daily. That's it.
There you go, people. 7 things to change your life. Ken Miller, I thank you for your time, brother, and I thank you for the wisdom that you pour into others. Much love and appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Derek.